Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Gopya Kamad Bhayavat Kamsa Desha Chedadado Nipaha Sambandhad Vishnaya Snehadhyuyam Bhaktya Vayam Vibho. Verse number 7.1.31. Yeah, decide. Okay. Gopya Kamad Bhayat Kanso Dvesha Chedya Dayo Nipaha Sambandhad Vishnaya Sneha Yuyam Bhaktya Vayam Vibho. Yeah, translation and purport by the language is one of Srila Prabhupada ki. There. My dear King Yudhishthir, the gopis by their lusty desires, Kamsa by his fear, Shishupal and other kings by envy, the Yadus by their familial relationship with Krishna, you Pandavas by your great affection for Krishna, and we the general devotees by our devotion service have obtained the mercy of Krishna. Purport. Different persons achieve different types of mukti. Sayujya, Salukya, Sarupya, Samipyam, Shakti, according to their own intense desire, which is called bhava. Thus, it is described here that gopis, by their lusty desire, which are based upon their intense love for Krishna, became the most beloved devotee of the Lord. Although the gopis at Vrindavan expressed their lusty desires in relationship with the paramour, Parkiyaras, they actually had no lusty desire. This is significant of spiritual advancement. Their desires appeared lusty, but actually they were not the lusty desire of the material world. Chaitanya Charitamrita compares the desire of the spiritual and material world to gold and iron. Both gold and iron are metal, but there is vast difference in their value. The lusty desire of the gopis for Krishna are compared to gold, and metal lusty desires are compared to iron. Kamsa and other enemies of Krishna merge into the existence of Brahman. Why should Krishna's friends and devotees have the same position? Krishna's devotees attain the ascension of the Lord as his constant companions, either in Vrindavan or in the Vaikuntha planets. Similarly, although Narad Muni wanders in the three worlds, he has exalted devotion for Narayan. The Vrishnis and Yadus and the father and mother of Krishna and Vrindavan all have family relationship with Krishna. Krishna's foster mother and father in Vrindavan, however, are more exalted in Vasudeva and Devaki. The next sloka. Tatamo api navena syam panchānaṁ puruṣam prati tasmāt kenapi upāyena mana Krishna niveshaya. Somehow or other, one must consider the form of Krishna very seriously. Then, by one of the five different processes mentioned above, one can return home back to Godhead. Atheists like King Vena, however, being unable to think of Krishna's form in any of these five ways, cannot attain salvation. Therefore, one must somehow think of Krishna whether in a friendly way or inimically. So impersonal atheists always try to circumvent the form of Krishna. Great politicians and philosophers of the modern age even try to banish Krishna from Bhagavad Gita. Consequently, for them there is no salvation. But Krishna's enemies think, here's Krishna, my enemy, I have to kill him. They think of Krishna in his actual form and thus they attain salvation. Devotees therefore who constantly think of Krishna's form are certainly liberated. The only business of the Mayavadi atheist is to make Krishna formless, and consequently, because of this severe offense, at the lotus feet of Krishna, they cannot expect salvation. Shri Vishnu Chakri Thakur says in this connection, Tena Shishupaladi Bhinnaha Pratikula Bhavam Dadishu En even Narakam Yatiti Bhavaha. Except for Shishupal, those who go against the regulated principle cannot attain salvation and are surely destined for hellish life. The regulated principle is that one must always think of Krishna whether as a friend or enemy. Om Gyantimarandase Gyanam Jana Chadakaya चक्षुर्मिलितं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं वदन्ति च वदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवां च श्रीरूपां सार्जातां सहगण रघुनाथं वितं तं तदेवं सावधूतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखामृतां च नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनेति नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाषाणदेशतारिणे नमो महाबलन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम बदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरितसे नमः हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमस्ते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So I think today we the somehow or other think of Krishna. So this section comes in the seventh canto, where there's a conversation between Yudhishthir Maharaj and Narad Muni. And Yudhishthir Maharaj asks a question, why Krishna is partial. So they started with Parikshit Maharaj's question, that why Krishna is partial to Devatas and he benefits the Devatas and kill the demons. And Sukadeva Goswami answers that's not the case. It's a time factor. Sometimes demons also get benefited. For example, when Hiranyakashipu was ruling, so who got benefited? Demons were benefited. Devtas were favoring. And then when Narsimhadev came, then he killed Hiranyakashipu because he tortured Prahlad. And then the Devtas again flourished. So he says sometimes mode of ignorance is favoring the demigods and sometimes mode of passion is favoring the demons. So because the gunas are always changing, somebody or the other is favored at some point of time. Somebody or the other is favored at some point of time. So in this world, same way you will find now devotees are very concerned that Bangladeshis are killing the Hindus, torturing the Hindus in there. So today is their time. Their mode is favoring. But they will be crying one point of time when the modes will change. And this is the power of the time. So, but when time powers you, rather than torturing the wicked, if you help the people do devotion service to Krishna, then when the time changes, it doesn't become unfavorable. It becomes favorable. So when our time is favorable, we may give difficult time to others. Then when our time becomes in problematic, then we get a difficult time. So time doesn't belong to anybody, and everybody get their own chance. So because demons exploit the demigods when their power comes, so when the mode of goodness is empowered, they get chutney there. And demigods, when their time is very good, what they do? Bhog vilas. They go into enjoying the heaven. So when the passion is empowered, they have to give up their gandhi there. But person who can remember Krishna in all times, goodness, passion, and ignorance, he becomes kalatit. He doesn't have to change his position. And that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. It's transcendental. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj talks about actually Krishna favors the demons. Why? Even when Krishna killed them, he gave them mukti. He gave them mukti. And then he goes to say that even somehow or other you should think of Krishna. And then he says, actually you can think of Krishna in enmity, then in love. And he gives example of Kamsa. Kamsa, Shishupal, they were so absorbed in Krishna. Kamsa and Shishupal, they were so much absorbed in Krishna, and they were thinking of Krishna always. And since they are always thinking of Krishna, so what happens? Yes, they go back to Krishna. So it's telling any way you think of Krishna, whether enmity, and here the verse comes, Gopi think of Krishna as a lover. Kamsa, fear. Fear. And Chedadayo, Shishupal in envy. And all the kings, Jarasan, Salva, and Vrishni as Sambandha, and Snehad. And we in Bhakti. Narada is saying about Bhakti. So whatever relationship we thought of Krishna, we become perfect. And you will find also in this world, if you're envious of somebody, you will think of upon him more than even Krishna also. You'll chant 16 rounds, but hardly you may remember Krishna. But किसी devotee से अनबन हो जाए तो पूरी chanting में वही आता रहेगा. So if you become, you had developed enmity to somebody, the remembrance becomes quite natural. Same way in love affairs, the remembrance becomes quite natural. There, somebody loves somebody, then naturally they remember him. There, till the time the love affair is going on. When it breaks up, then divorce. Then problems there. So the way the emotions are very powerful way to remember Krishna. And out of that love and envy, they are very powerful emotions there, which makes people remember Krishna. But there are other people also who were hateful of Krishna, but they didn't achieve Krishna. They went to hell. Can I give an example? Who went to hell? Who hated Krishna but didn't achieve Krishna? Vena. Now, very amazing thing. Shishupal hated Krishna and Vena hated Krishna. Shishupal went to spiritual world, but Vena went to hell. Why this discrimination? Ah, Vena did not meditate on form of Krishna. He just became a theist. Okay, stop all thing. I am the God. Like the impersonalists and the Mayavadis. They want to remove Krishna from Bhagavad Gita. They don't want to have anything from the form of Krishna. So like that, Vena removed Krishna totally. But Shishupal knew, oh, this person Krishna, he will kill me. This person Krishna. So he's meditating on form of Krishna. This Pandak. So he was thinking of Krishna's form always. They're getting point. He's thinking of Krishna's form. Who? Shishupal. So because he's thinking of Krishna's form, that purified him. Now Kubja, there's a difference between the way Kubja thought of Krishna and Gopis thought of Krishna. So Gopis didn't have lust, they have only love. But Kubja had lust. Kubja wanted Krishna to satisfy her senses, but Gopis didn't want it. Gopi wanted to satisfy Krishna's senses. Then, so So whole the point is said, even you hate Krishna, but if you don't attain him, better to remember Krishna in favorability. There. Now, what a way, and not only the gopis, even wherever Krishna went, Hastinapur, Dwarka, all the people and the ladies were so attracted to Krishna there. They're always imagining the good fortune of when Krishna is leaving Hastinapur. All the rooftop ladies, they're thinking, oh, what a great fortune of the queens of Krishna. They're always with Krishna. What a great fortune of the gopis of Vrindavan. They receive so much mercy of Krishna there. So they were just thinking of Krishna. And when they saw, and they were not in illusion, they oh, the same form Krishna was going. This Krishna, he's Mahavishnu who glanced on creation. He's the source of all creation. But he's thinking of the conjugal Leela of Krishna. They're thinking of conjugal Leela of Krishna. So we can see over here that how there is so much enchantment to the form of Krishna. So when we say the remembrance of Krishna purifies us, what does it mean? That a person is absorbed in the transcendental form of Krishna. Even amongst all the avatars, when you remember the form of Krishna, that is most purifying and most enchanting amongst all the avatars there. The Krishna Tribhanga Lalitam form there. So anybody becomes somehow or other attached to the form of Krishna. Think of the form of Krishna. He becomes purified. And that's how the next verse talks about that somehow or other one must consider the form of Krishna very seriously. Either friendly way or inimically way. Doesn't matter. So even if you think of Krishna inimically, because he has no duality. So you think, okay, at least he's thinking of me. And he will purify a person's heart. He'll purify a person's heart. And you will see to remember Krishna is most difficult in one sense because he's in Shuddha Sattva. When our mind is absorbed in ignorance, passion, how do you remember something which is in Shuddha Sattva? And that is why even as sadhana bhakti, remembering Krishna becomes difficult. And therefore it becomes a sadhana to remember Krishna. Now for gopis it's not a sadhana, it's a loving affection. For Nanda Baba and Yashoda is not a sadhana, it's a loving affection to remember Krishna. For Vrishnis, they're also perfected beings in the sense they remember Krishna as Vasudev, Paramatma, there in Dwaraka, in Mathura. And but the Vrajavasis, they love Krishna in loving affection. So their remembrance is the most strongest. In fact, they're trying to forget Krishna, but they're not able to forget Krishna. There. So one should concentrate on Krishna with a favorable mood. Except for Shishupal, Prabhu writes, except for Shishupal, those who go against the regulative principle cannot attain salvation and are surely destined for hellish life. The regulative principle is that one must always think of Krishna, whether as a friend or enemy. In fact, whatever regulations we are following in devotional service, 64 regulative principles, what is the purpose? Rup Goswami gives in Bhakti Sam Sindhu, whatever principles we're following, what is the purpose? Smartavyam Sadatam Vishmu Vishmartyam na Jatuchit. If you remember Krishna, that is the purpose of all regulative principles. Sometimes in sadhana bhakti we become very confused. Should we do this activity will become more advanced? Should we do this service will become more advanced? The answer is whichever service gives the remembrance of Krishna and purify the false ego which blocks us from remembering Krishna is the best service. Is the best service. Whether it's a book distribution, whether it is deity worship, whether it is doing Harinam Sankirtan, giving a class, washing the vessels, washing the pot, whichever service can give us more absorb in Krishna. That is the best service. And an ideal guru, expert guru is what? Who engages his disciples somehow or other in remembering Krishna. Now, for us to sit at one place and remember Krishna is not easy. How do you say you can sit at one place and remember Krishna? You can sit at one place and remember Krishna. It's easy for you. So even 2 hours of chanting, how much we remember Krishna? So therefore, the intelligent engagements by which a person get absorbed in Krishna, that's where a person makes a spiritual advancement. So if you see the life of yogis, those who go to do tapasya in the jungle, their purification comes that they do all the austerities, yama, niya, tapa, and everything to just sit and meditate on the super soul form in the heart. And because they're meditating on the Paramatma form in the heart, and and that take years together, sometimes lifetimes together, to meditate on that form. First they imagine that form, and then gradually the Paramatma reveal that form to them. There. And they meditate upon that form. And that's why the whole purification, the mystic siddhis, everything come for the yogis. So they have a dedicated program of austerities there. Because unless they do the stage of pratyahar, the stage of pratyahar means अच्छा मत सुनो, अच्छा मत खाओ, अच्छा मत देखो. Then the senses, material senses become blunt while doing that. And then the spiritual senses awaken to see the form of the Paramatma. So they do rigorous training to see the form of the Paramatma. But in the bhakti process, without shunning our mental senses, we are trying to serve Krishna. And by service of Krishna, if Krishna becomes pleased, then senses being engaged in Lord's service, then Krishna reveals a form. The spiritual senses awaken. And then one can perceive Krishna in that spiritual form. But while doing this process of sadhana bhakti, a devotee has to see. See, even sometimes is now question comes if somebody is envious of devotees, thinking of devotees in a hatred way, will it purify a person? No. If you think of Krishna in hate, if you hate Krishna, that may purify the person, but not devotees. So while in our day-to-day thing, our absorption comes with the some khatpat happen with devotees, and our absorption goes into that which is material absorption. Or in a family life, the absorption goes into the family, the problems of the family, the problems of the life. But a sadhaka means our absorption should go in Krishna, and that is actually the practice one has to do in bhakti. जय जय माई की जय शादी भगवान की जय शिवानंद भगवान की जय श्री प्रभात की जय. Yeah, yeah. So the absorption. So while doing sadhana bhakti, what is very important, because see the activities of bhakti itself may not ensure that you are absorbed in Krishna. For example, there are days we are standing in Mangal Aarti, but absorption in some issue, what had happened day before yesterday. How many experience that? So that means what? You miss the bliss. What would have come by remembering Krishna? Because whenever you can remember Krishna, it is blissful. Whenever you can remember Krishna, it is blissful experience. Now, when initially people come to Mangal Aarti, they feel very great bliss because absorption is there, newness is there. Over a period of time, we feel, अरे रोजाना ही मंगल आरती आना एक दिन लेट चलेगा तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है. So, and we become unconscious that Krishna is watching when we have come. Lord is there. That connection becomes weak, and that remembrance becomes weak. Same way, initially when people chant, they chant attentively, they feel very enthusiastic and happy. But eventually that connection with the japa gets lost, that absorption of japa gets lost, and we feel lack of enthusiasm. Same way attending Guru Puja, Darshanarti, or any Rodhana Darshanarti happens. I will do some important things and then and come. So we may not take the Darshanarti very seriously. And the Bhagavatam class. Anyway, we know all the philosophy. Now, most of the classes you hear, you don't hear any new philosophical point. The philosophy is same. अब कितना philosophy बोलोगे करके. Now, whatever I'm speaking also today, we have heard so many times. But Bhagavatam is for remembering Krishna. So, unless we take our practices to the level of Smarana, the it will be difficult to overcome mechanical practices and it will look boredom. But when the same spiritual practices come on the level of Smaran, when you think of Bhagavatam as an opportunity to remember Krishna, then you won't feel bored. अरे वो तो same चीज बोलेंगे, boring class देंगे. At least he'll speak about Krishna. At least some leela of Krishna will be there. Something about Krishna will be there. It's a opportunity to remember Krishna. You won't feel bored reading Bhagavatam. अरे पढ़ा हुआ है, फिर से first canto चालू हो गया. No, again you're remembering Krishna. Every day Mangal Aarti are coming, same old Mangal Aarti. No, yes, in front of the Lord, you're remembering Krishna. So that eagerness to remember Krishna, that opportunity to remember Krishna, that cultivating that smaran, is very important. Why? Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smarnam Padasevanam. When Krishna says Yogi now vi sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bharitamam samyuktamo mata. So who is the greatest yogi? Bhakti yogi. But at what level, Shivram Maharaj writes, at what level a Bhakti yogi becomes greater than all yogi? At the level of Smaran. So though we may say Bhakti Yoga is the topmost, but the potency of Bhakti Yoga only will feel whenever Smaran increases. Now what is the difference between a pure devotee and a not pure devotee? How a pure devotee shakes up the whole world? Because he's remembering Krishna 24 hours. And that remembrance of Krishna oozing out from him, it makes everybody else also Krishna conscious. So that potency, how potency in preaching will come? By remembrance of Krishna. If you can make people remember Krishna by your preaching, make people attached to Krishna by your preaching, that's the potency of the preaching. There, which comes in the devotee. So the sadhaka, in order to overcome the mechanical means, in order to do this cultivating remembrance of Krishna in our activities is very, very important. See, love means two things. You want to please the person and you remember the person. So when there's a love for Krishna, automatically remembrance becomes easy. When you want to please somebody and you love somebody, naturally remember that person. Or when you remember a person, you start loving a person also. When you favorably remember a person, favorably deal with a person, want to please the person, then you start liking the person and start loving the person. So we'll discuss something how to cultivate this, cultivate spiritual absorption. So mental absorption is called abnivesha. Mental absorption is called abnivesha. So first avidya comes, ignorance of who am I, then asmita, desires, attachment, then raga, strong attachment, then dvesha, hatred, and then abnivesha. So vidya, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abnivesha. So vishaya avishta chittanam vishnu avesh na bhavet. If the mind is absorbed in vishaya, vishaya avishta chittanam vishnu avesh na bhavet. If the mind is absorbed in sense gratification, the mind will not think of Vishnu. Another thing we understand, our position doesn't determine our advancement in spiritual life. Somebody may be in Brahmacharya ashram, somebody Grihastha ashram. What determines advancement in how much person remembering Krishna? Sri Prabhupada was in Grihastha ashram whole life. At the end, he took sannyas. But his god brothers were sannyasis from beginning. But Prabhupada's remembrance of Krishna and his Guru was very powerful. And that gave him the potency to change the whole world. Though he took sannyas for the purpose of preaching. But what gave the potency to his preaching? His inner cultivation of remembrance of Krishna. That shook the whole world. His compassion, his connection with Krishna. And that is why in sadhana bhakti, cultivating this remembrance is so important. So avidya asmitaha raga dvesha and abnivesha. Now you see, people who were with Krishna, but because of abnivesha, they couldn't take benefit of Krishna association. Like Kekai, she's the mother of Ram, but she got absorbed in kingdom, position. So ulta, she desired to send Ram only for Vanvas. Rather than developing absorption in Ram, she sent Ram to Vanvas. Why? Because of mental absorption. Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was with Krishna. He would have said, "Oh, Krishna, so nice. You're making a proposal. I'll make Yudhishthir king. I will also serve, and you please stay in our kingdom." Dhritarashtra has so much opportunity to be with Krishna. Just think about. But he was attached to his kingdom and his son Duryodhana. So his Abhinivesha was in kingdom. He couldn't take benefit of Krishna. Same way, we will be living in the temple with the deities. But if a metal absorption in somewhere, even you're doing pujari seva, your mind may be thinking of Maya. So therefore, right absorption is very important. And that is why strict discipline is also important. When there's a strict discipline of attending Mangal Aarti, Bhagvatam, Guru Puja, chanting, then anyway have to be there. So better cultivate remembrance. When you have an option, anyway taste नहीं आ रहा है चलो आश्रम में जाके कुछ करके आते हैं एनीवे टेस्ट आ ही नहीं रहा है थोड़ा इधर उधर घूम के आते कुछ करके आते बट मैंने तो स्ट्रिक्ट डिसिप्लिन अभी कहीं नहीं जाने वाला है तो मन भी सोचता है अभी एनीवे यहाँ रहना ही है तो थोड़ा एब्जॉर्व हो जाओ सो स्ट्रिक्ट डिसिप्लिन helps in a sadhana state there. So therefore a devotee, a sadhaka should have this goal in mind, smaran. That the smaran is very, very important. And whatever you're thinking materially, as soon as the opportunity, it transfers into tangible form. Then person gets another body. Person gets another body. See how a person is going home back to Godhead when you please Krishna. When you're consciously trying to please Krishna and thinking of Krishna, then the spiritual body develops while living in this body. And with that spiritual body, one goes to spiritual world. And see, to remember Krishna, we need mercy of Krishna and the Vaishnavas. If we offend the Vaishnavas, the remembrance of Krishna will be replaced by material absorption. Vaishnava Aparad is also leads to like Sabri Muni. He was absorbed in Krishna, but he did a Vaishnava Aparad, so he got absorbed in thinking of mating of two fishes. So you may not receive physical reactions to Vaishnava Aparad, but what happens? Our remembrance of Krishna is hindered. Our juice in Krishna consciousness is hindered. Ecstasy is hindered because of the aparatas. But on the other hand, one remains submissive, takes the instruction seriously, get the blessings, do the service nicely. That blessings empowered him to remember Krishna. If remembrance of Krishna is coming, that is due to blessings. And absorption So therefore, spiritual absorption, there should be a spiritual aspiration. If there's no spiritual aspiration in the seva, then seva becomes mechanical. Like just think, if you personally have the opportunity to serve Krishna, you'll be excited or not. But when deity service comes, we are not excited because aspiration is not there. Now, if you see during time of Krishna, did everybody wanted to serve Krishna? No, Dhritarashtra didn't want to serve Krishna. Dronacharya also had respect for Krishna, but he didn't want to serve Krishna. Ashwathama, वो तो कृष्ण से बोला था अपना चक्रा दे दो मैं तुम्हें अपना ब्रह्मास्त्र दे दूंगा. Let's exchange. So they are seeing Krishna very politically rather than trying to serve him, and they are with Krishna. They had a right opportunity. They could have washed Krishna's feet. They could have invited Krishna to their home for lunch. Krishna would have come if they would have done with love. But rather than seeking all that opportunity, they were seeking what? Politics. The same way, while living in a spiritual institute, we may also be seek position, fame, value, than seeking service to Krishna. So Mahabharata is happening here also in our life. We forget the purpose in a life when we forget the smarnam. But when a devotee is practicing smarnam, he is satisfied with whatever seva is because that smarnam satisfies his heart. Like Vrittasur, he's satisfied in defeating from Indra because he's remembering Krishna at that point of time. So that is the secret of pure devotional service. When you have smaran in your bhakti, in any situation you can be satisfied because to remember Krishna, you are not dependent on any situation, and that's why a devotee doesn't worry is hell or is a heaven. So to the degree a devotee can practice that smarana, he becomes happy in all situation of life. He doesn't worry, अरे आश्रम में और devotees नहीं आ रहे हैं, हमारा क्या होगा? अरे तुम बैठ के स्मरण करो भगवान का करके, दूसरे नहीं आ रहे तो क्या दिक्कत है? प्रभु जी नो मैं तो यहीं रहूंगा, मैं किसी दूसरी जगह प्रचार करने नहीं जाऊंगा. नहीं, अगर आपको स्मरण है तो आप कहीं जाके प्रचार कर सकते हो. स्वर्ग में क्या, नरक में क्या. There. So when you cultivate that remembrance of Krishna, you become very confident. You become very confident in any situation of life, and you don't depend on material parameters because you know Krishna is there with me. He will take care. Why? There's a remembrance of Krishna. So when there's an aspiration, opportunity to serve, then service gives a remembrance. Service gives a remembrance, and then that brings joy and further longing for service. Then you find more opportunity for service and solidification of prema and return back home back to Godhead. And absorption happens by repeated contemplation. Dhyato Vishayapumsam. See, material absorption also happens. Dhyato Vishayapumsam. Spiritual absorption also happens. So repeated prolonged exposure causes impressions. So every day we are coming Mangal Aarti, right? So what we are seeing? Krishna's beautiful form. So that is creating a prolonged exposure for spiritual absorption. So we're hearing for a long time. That creates spiritual impressions long there. So mother bathing, dressing, decorating, looking at child. You seen mothers? They're very happy. मेरा बेटा कैसा लग रहा है? इसके दांत आ गए हैं. Tinnu tinnu tinnu. They take a lot of joy in that service. Have seen mothers taking care of the children. It's a joyful thing for them. It's not an you know अरे क्या burden them उठा अभी करना पड़ेगा. So like that a devotee serve Krishna with joy. Oh, in service to Krishna there is remembrance of Krishna. The remembrance of Krishna gives joy in everything you do. There, services. And then bhakti becomes so amazing. And you don't want to exchange that position with that verse comes in the sixth chapter of Gita. Kyam labdha cha param lavam. Nam manyate manyate nadikam tada. So that is when a devotee feels that remembrance in his services, he doesn't want to give up the seva. He doesn't want. Why? Manyatam nadikam tada. he feels remembrance. So spiritual absorption in Krishna is made possible by repeated deity dressing and worship, archana, chanting the holy names, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, reading Krishna book, and rendering all sorts of services in which remembrance of Krishna is there. So initially, see, when we do services which Krishna wants us to do, in those services, blessings to remember Krishna also come. The services which we want to do when we do, we may like those services, but the blessings to remember Krishna may not come. At a getting point. But the services which Krishna wants to do, with those blessings of Guru and Krishna, the blessing of remembering Krishna comes. Even you may not want to do that seva. Even it may not be your nature. But since you're trying to do what Krishna wants to for pleasure of Krishna, remembering Krishna becomes easy in that seva. Because you're taking a mood of a servant of Krishna. And Krishna gets his remembrance. So, to a degree, there's a love for Krishna. Remembering Krishna becomes much easier. So, be mindful, not absent minded. And mental absorption makes us oblivious to our spiritual duties. Spiritual absorption lead to progress of soul, like Akrura. Akrura was absorbed in Krishna. Bhishma was absorbed in Krishna. And that's a topic for Gaurang Darshanpu's class on Wednesday and Thursday morning. The prayers of Bhishma Dev. Remembering Krishna throughout life and at the end of life. Uddhava, he was absorbed in Krishna. Parikshit. So why they're heroes of Srimad Bhagavatam? They're absorbed in Krishna. But on the other hand, Bhogeshwarya Prasaktanam Samadhavana Vidyate. Now, what makes a person absorb in anything? Repeated interaction causes absorption. A boy doesn't fall in girl at one side. It requires some repeated interactions. Then it becomes very strong. Especially I've seen boys before getting married, if they talk to a girl after even engagement and that engagement breaks, it's a big setback on their mind. Like the girlfriend boyfriend, no? When they've interacted along and the girlfriend goes away. Big tension because of the repeated interaction they become absorbed. Repeated interaction they have become absorbed. There. But then that breaks off. So a lot of suffering they face. Attraction. So opulence of beauty, wealth, that attracts a person and makes us focus on them. Hearing about anyone or anything causes absorption. Like Ravan heard about beauty of Sita. He developed material absorption. But Rukmani heard about Krishna. She developed spiritual absorption. So hearing. So prolonged hearing about Krishna lead to his remembrance. Shut samvrityachiram. The virya of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, Leela of Krishna. And they said more we read Krishna book, chanting becomes easy. Because you start getting attracted to Krishna, yeah, person. The first, before cultivating remember, first we have to chant the holy names of Lord and hear the holy name. Because that purifies our mind. And then remembering Krishna, then holy name only reveal the form of Krishna also. And holy name develop attraction to the pastimes and qualities of Krishna. So therefore, holy name is the basis for it there. And this is a process just hear. But as you're hearing, the natural result of hearing the holy name, hearing Krishna Katha is attraction to Krishna's form will awaken. Remembrance of Krishna's form will come. And at that time, all material forms will go away. Material forms will go away, will look pale because attachment to Krishna's form has awakened. And what deprives us of absorption? Sinful activities. There. So there are three things in cultivating absorption. First is a preliminary qualification, living an austere way of life, and proper cultivation. So these are the three prerequisites to learn Smaranam. So preliminary concession is one should hear about Krishna. Always engage in Krishna Katha, hearing. So that will produce a preliminary qualification. Shanvatam Sakatha Krishna Purna Shavana Kirtana Hriddantastahi Bhadrani Vidanoti Sahasatam. So when the hearing of Bhagavatam, Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya, is done in proper heart, then whatever is troubles of the mind is clean. And then a person feels remembrance of Krishna. And then, yeah, austere way of life. So why? Unless there is austerity, absorption will not come. I also one thing, if you chant more rounds on Ekadashi, best practices don't take prasad till the time your rounds get completed. Then mind cooperates chanting. But morning only you take full plate prasadam, chanting is so difficult. So austere way of life is helpful for remembering Krishna and give a sensual desire. Even you see, Haridas Thakur converted the prostitute into devotee. But first thing she did is stop eating very less. Then her mind and senses got controlled. Right? Eating frugally, it mentioned. Then she could chant 192 rounds. So even you come in association of Haridas Thakur, you have to control your senses to make a spiritual advancement. So in order to increase chanting, increase thing, we have to have sense control. Eat what is required, not eat more than required. Then body will function properly. So, an austere way of life again, absorb mind in seeing Krishna's beauty, not any other beauty. So this is absorption. So like in said, what gives satisfaction to mind? Detaching the mind from thoughts of sense gratification. If you're thinking of sense gratification, you cannot mind cannot feel satisfied and chanting is difficult. So to cultivate remembrance, first one has to be a satisfied in mind. Shouldn't have material desires in the mind. So to in order to revive the soul's spiritual nature, the devotees must embrace the basic austerities which Srila Prabhupada insisted. You don't have to do too much austerity, but what Prabhupada expected. So absorb oneself in service, reflect on the teaching of scripture, and remember Krishna directly and indirectly. Now, what does it mean by remembering Krishna indirectly? Like Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter. Arjuna asked Krishna, how do I remember you? Whatever you see as my energy, that way you remember me. So remembering Krishna indirectly. Even giving device lectures or teaching philosophy is an indirect remembrance of Krishna. Because you're indicating to Krishna about something about Krishna. And doing kirtan, speaking on Krishna Leela, Bhagvatam, the direct ways of remembering Krishna. There. So our preaching, so both are important, indirect and the indirect is more easier. Direct is little difficult in a state. But indirect is also remembrance of Krishna. So therefore preaching to new people helps a lot. Because whatever you will speak, you will want to speak about Krishna only at the end of the day. You'll bring about the God, devotional service. So that is indirect way of remembering Krishna. And eventually as people grow, you'll directly speak them about Krishna also. There. There's the best thing is to read Krishna book with the devotees. Direct remembrance of Krishna. We should also read philosophy. We shouldn't uh, Siddhanta, Baliya na kare alas. So in reading Siddhanta, one should not do alas. But at the same time, the taste comes when you remember Krishna along with devotees. Machitta, Madgata, Prana Bodhayanta, Paraspara. There. So then you directly remember Krishna. There. So preaching helps a lot to remember Krishna. And see, for preaching, you don't need ki whole 30, 40 devotees, you should be there, then you should give a camp, and then I will remember Krishna. You can take one devotee and read Krishna book with him. You will remember Krishna. Sometimes we have misconception. Unless I make a batch of 30, I will not give a class. There. No, even three devotees are there. You're reading Krishna book with them. You are making progress in your spiritual life. See how those devotees, Balaram Shakti Prabhu, Gaurang Deshan Prabhu, it's not they look for a big audience. They were genuine in remembering Krishna. They start discussing Krishna with others. People liked it, and people want to join, and their Krishna consciousness increase. It's not that we have to do. If we share Krishna with people, people are coming to hear and wanting to know more about Krishna. There. So that is something very, very important to remember about Krishna. There. And what is the benefit of preaching? You are getting to remember Krishna. You are getting to, you will read something more of Prabhupada books. You have to do. Like any time I have to give Bhakti Yoga class, I have to read those purports. Two, three times I have to read them, then speak also. So that absorbs us in Krishna. There. So having engagement of preaching is a great benediction of remembering Krishna. You're forced to remember Krishna because अभी क्लास देना तो कृष्ण के बारे में तो बोलोगे ना कुछ मैनेजमेंट तो बोलोगे नहीं मतलब ड्यूटी तो नहीं पूरी अब क्लास दिया मैनेजमेंट क्लास दे दिया क्लास दिया मैनेजमेंट क्लास दे दिया तो मैनेजमेंट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट to make things proper, pakka, organization and things there. But the activities with direct remembrance of Krishna is also very, very important there. That inculcates that mood. So mystic yogis who live in seclusion achieve this spiritual victory only after great effort. And Prabhupada always says, just mind is occupied with something. Just practice to occupy the mind with Krishna. That's all. Where is the difficulty? See, Sri Prabhupada's definition of a devotee is one who cannot think of anything but Krishna. If a devotee means you can't think anything other than Krishna. Because they're either chanting Hare Krishna, worshipping the deity, going to distribute books, talking about Krishna, or eating Krishna Prasad, devotees are always absorbing thoughts of him. That is underlying estimation. That whatever we are doing, we should think of Krishna. Sri Prabhupada made controlling the mind sound easy, as he did all aspects of devotional service. And what people are very inspired, whatever Prabhupada did, he did with a lot of spiritual absorption. He ate also with a spiritual absorption. Whatever he did with spiritual absorption. Krishna. And that was very inspiring. In this way, they would perfect the process of remembering him. Service to the deities, as you're asking me, begins whenever you remember them and offer all your services by remember at the same time. All activities, words, everything should be offered as service to the deities, and this offering with remembering will gradually increase as you practice it. So, deity worship is very important in remembering. In fact, in deity worship, there's a manas puja. So, before even entering the altar, you imagine in the mind what service you're doing to the form of Radha and Krishna, and then actually you do. So, that manas puja actually makes the deity worship as an important anga in remembering Krishna. There. And that's why deity worship is very purifying and make the mind in Satoguna. All fighting nature goes away. All difficult nature goes away just by deity worship. It's very helpful. Because absorption in Krishna is it produces with it. Book distribution also. You're always Gita, Gita, take Gita, take Gita, Krishna Gita. Krishna said this, open the words. If your absorption in just numbers, that may not purify the mind. आज 1000 बुक यहाँ ड्रॉप करके आए, आज 500 उधर ड्रॉप करके आए. That's material absorption. But when you absorb how people are benefiting from the message of Krishna, you're getting to speak about Krishna in book distribution. And just in hand to hand book distribution, you get more opportunity to remember Krishna, and that's more purifying. And more we depend on Krishna. स्कूल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन जाओ आराम से जाके बुक देकर आ जाओ. 100 हो गया स्कोर, 200 हो गया, 300 हो गया, वेरी हैप्पी. But absorption in Krishna is less. In hand to hand book distribution, absorption in Krishna is more, and that brings more purification. Harinam Sankirtan, absorption in the holy name. So any activity which is producing absorption is very important. Like you may be rolling chapati, you can sing Hare Krishna while rolling chapati. You're absorbed in Krishna. And that gives a juice, that gives a taste. Doing them kirtans in the temple hall in front of the deities is so absorbing seva. So when you see your service as an opportunity to remember Krishna, it never becomes mechanical. It becomes increased, joyful, ever. And that's a mood of sadhana bhakti. So the mental absorption attained by unsavoring service can also be had in two other ways. By discussing and reflecting on the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and by seeing everyday events through the eyes of scripture. So reading Prabhupada books again increases the smaran. पढ़ रहे हो अभी याद तो आएगा ही करके. And to a degree we read prayerfully with absorption. You see all Abnivesha goes away. So in Dwarka Yatra, what was the highlight? Book reading. So I told Dinesh, okay, Prabhu, if you don't read books, please 2 hour slot is for book reading only. And Dinesh took a nice slot, prayerful reading, or Bhurijan Prabhu in the way, prayerful reading. And many devotee told, we never got absorbed and we never read Bhagavatam for such a long time. Many devotees have that as their realization. So I got this idea from Abhimanyu Prabhu. He planned a camp one time, book reading camp for the boys, instilling they don't inmates only. But somehow that couldn't manifest that camp. But at that time I thought, oh, no, actually some camps you should have just sit and read in a very proper spiritual atmosphere. Because you get absorbed in spiritual reading, you get a lot of see, we may read, but read with absorption will lead to smarna. That's why when you have camp, long hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. So one thing I'm planning now, have camps of 5 hours. So then what happens? Boom, 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 absorb हो ही जाता है. 5 घंटा सुन के इंसान absorb हो ही जाता है. And then one feels taste. The absorption comes. So those who experience this absorption, mannate nadikam tata. That is devotion service. That is their ruchi. Ruchi will develop by that. There. So we're doing kirtan for a long time. You do 24-hour kirtan, whole night, awake and do kirtan. It develops some kind of absorption there in the kirtan when you're doing for a long time. So all this intense bhakti, these 5 activities are very, very powerful. Even person doesn't have faith, just he does it attentively. It will have his impact. He'll attain love for Krishna. He'll attain bhava bhakti. Srimad Bhagvatam, chanting the holy name, deity worship, dhamvas, association of devotees, Vaishnav seva. These 5 are very, very powerful things when a devotee does. There, you develop absorption. In doing this, you can make very spiritual advancement. There, like you see, Dinbandhu Prabhu, what is spiritual absorption? He speaks Krishna Gata, completely get absorbed in it. There. The way he narrates Krishna Leela, he just go into those pastimes, that absorption. Then others they require remembering verses. So little bit of this memorizing verses is very, very important. There, you memorize verses, sing Vaishnav songs. Tarun Krishna always singing some Vaishnav song or the other, or doing kirtan. That brings absorption. Avimanipur remembers a lot of verses in free time also, recite them there. So these are very powerful ways of remembering Krishna there. And when remember Krishna increases, all metal contamination automatically washes away. Anarthas so much don't trouble because remembrance of Krishna is there. So this habit of remembering prayers, verses is very, very there. And of course, having studying Bhakti Vaibhav is a trick to absorb for long hours in Srimad Bhagavatam. And as you keep thinking of his names, chanting his names, the names will purify. And then practicing remembrance will become much easier. So we saw that how remembrance of Krishna is so crucial for our spiritual progress. To not be mechanical and to gain taste, to find enthusiasm in bhakti. There. So somehow or another one should try to remember Krishna. And why we are not feeling enthusiastic towards attending Bhagavatam class, towards attending Guru Puja, Mangalarti, probably we are not absorbed. So therefore we are feeling better I do something else. And we will find an excuse for it of not doing it. Krishna will give hundreds of excuses when you don't want to do it. There. And and whatever we do it in a very absorbed way. There. So prayerful mode. See, prayerful mode also brings absorption when we are prayerful in japa, prayerful in Bhagavatam. Because in prayerful mode, oh, I completely depend upon you. Then absorption goes in other places. Go away from other places. And absorption comes in the activity you are doing. Gratefulness is very important. Unless you're grateful, absorption is very difficult. Those teachers who are teaching mindfulness, okay, to be present there. The first thing they teach is gratefulness. If you're not grateful for a thing, you cannot be absorbed. If you're not grateful for bhakti, we cannot be absorbed. So gratefulness leads to absorption. There. And then we saw that how preaching is a good way of absorption, book distribution, harinam, how these activities help in absorbing ourselves. Then reading the scriptures with absorption, prayerful, Vaishnava songs, and this is how we practice absorption. And that is a sadhana bhakti there. And perfection in sadhana bhakti is perfect absorption in Krishna. So that should be good. And that absorption will naturally produce love. When there's a love, there will be absorption. If there's absorption, love will also come. Both nourishes each other. Yes. Any question? Dinesh.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class and telling the
I
secret
gave the class for myself. I need to practice, man.
how to overcome the mechanical zone. So, I was just reading in Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada says there that the acts of bhakti themselves are very powerful. Sometimes one need not offer them. If one does offenselessly those acts, then still one gets the results actually. Because the example is given of the rat who burns his mustache, jumps up and down. It he jumps up and down in such a way that actually it was appearing like Aarti, and then eventually goes back, come back to Godhead. So one is that, and the second thing that you said here today about absorption. Of course, as sadhaka is very important, but then how to reconcile these two things?
See, this is called Agya Sukriti. So when you do thing without remembrance, it's building your Agya Sukriti.
But then he went back to Godhead just by doing.
No, no, no. It doesn't. He get another human form to practice devotion service. Then he went on back to garden. Nobody can go back to garden without performing devotional service. Even Ajamila didn't went home back to garden. He went to Haridwar, practiced bhakti, then went home back to garden. So sometimes only one part of the story would be given in the scriptures. Because he did and went home back to garden. But what was in between is not be spoken. You have to do sadhana bhakti before going home back to garden. You have to remember Krishna. The demons are already remembering Krishna. That's why they directly went. They did sadhana bhakti in a negative way. But without remembering Krishna, you don't go back to garden. You have to practice that there. So what happens when you do it without remembrance of Krishna? You build Agya Sukriti. And when that Agya Sukriti builds up doing them, then remembrance of Krishna starts coming. But remembrance of Krishna has to come. So if you do it before, you can make more faster progress. Why to wait? But what may happen, you may start feeling bored and you may not want to do the practice longer. Because there is no कब तक करोगे अज्ञा सुकृति के उसमें. Till when you will do. But when you do with consciousness, you will feel great joy. And others feel great joy seeing you.
So to develop this Agyat Sukriti, only Prabhupada said this, that fake it till you make it.
या वही करके द पर्पस इज ठीक है एनी अज्ञा सुकृति बिल्ट हो रहा है लेकिन वो कब ब्रेक होगा इस लाइफ टाइम में होगा नेक्स्ट लाइफ टाइम होगा यू डोंट नो ना सो व्हाई टू वेट फॉर अनदर लाइफ टाइम
Nice. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So in this verse, Gopya Kamat and Yoyam
Bharat comes
Bhaktya.
out.
So we usually say that gopis have pure devotion to Krishna. But here, why it is differentiated between Kama and Bhakti? Because Yudhishthira is telling us Yoyam Bhaktya, with the Bhakti is performed. But for gopis specifically, Prabhupada is
No,
maintaining
that
out
is
of
very
lust.
sadhana bhakti. See, gopis did not do very sadhana bhakti. They do raganuga bhakti in conjugal love, which is called kama in this world. So they first called kama, but those pure love. But Narad Muni did Vedi bhakti. That's what the bhakti was being taught.
For Yudhishthira is Vaidhi Bhakti.
No, see, Snehad. If you
That is
see,
for Vrishnis.
see.
Yoyam Bhaktya Vayam
No,
Vibhu.
Vayam. Vayam means me. Narad Muni is saying, na? So
We.
Vayam is who? Narad Muni.
Hmm.
Snehad Yuyam. Sambandhad Vrishnaya. So Vrishnaya by relationship. And Yuyam is and Yusha from Sneha. And Bhaktaya Vayam Vibho. And myself, Narada, by Bhakti. So Vedi sadhana bhakti. He's not telling I have a sneh. He did sadhana bhakti. So Vidhi sadhana bhakti. That's the meaning of. And his bhakti shakti, no? Bhakti shakti of the Lord. With the general devotees.
So, like how they get the enmity, like because in bhakti our absorption takes
No, they're
long
not doing
time to.
bhakti. They're just envious of Krishna by their poor sanskaras. And they are envious to get absorbed in Krishna.
So it takes multiple lifetime.
Multiple lifetime. Like Kalanemi. Who's comes? Kalanemi. Kalanemi was killed by Vishnu. So develop head, hey, Vishnu killed me. So this life also is remembering Vishnu. So karte. But see, even Vishnu killed him last life. He still didn't attain liberation. Again came as Kamsa. Only when Krishna killed him, he developed liberation. So see, the Asuras killed by Vishnu again come back. But when Krishna killed them, that's the time they go to the spiritual world.
And where they will land up, like is it Krishna will decide?
So different land up in different places. Like Kamsa attained Sayujya. Shishupal attained Sarupya. Shishupal, Dantvarka and Pandaka achieved Sarupya. Other enemies achieve Sayujya. So different people will attain different based on that. Like Putana became a Dhatri. But she will serve Krishna from distance, not like the Gopis and Vatsalya Bhav. She will have a distance there. So they will attain, but in different form.
Like if you said that preliminary qualification is hearing, so hearing में भी नहीं हो रहा है तो क्या करें?
हाँ तो पहले hearing में स्मरण लाना है absorption.
So
क्या हो जाता है जब hearing करते हैं नींद आ जाती है तो उसे रात को sufficient rest लेना चाहिए या फिर hearing करने के पहले 15 मिनट थोड़ा सो लेना चाहिए.
नहीं मतलब जैसे धृतराष्ट्र आपने बताया एग्जांपल, धृतराष्ट्र है वो अपॉर्चुनिटी था, कृष्णा उसके
हाँ
सामने है.
पर मेटल absorption था ना, so don't be
हाँ
mentally absorbed.
मतलब हेल्पलेस जैसा लगता है कभी.
तो गुड ना, हेल्पलेस लगता है तो भगवान का शरण लो.
ओके.
Okay, so we
Prabhuji, like the Dhritarashtra kind of people, and there are like Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur writes that even in Dwarka there were people who were against Krishna also. So, like, how come they get a chance to be with the Lord and they get so much of association and so much of chance?
who
Dhritarashtra
this
kind of
Asha.
people.
See, like Dhobi, Krishna killed that Dhobi. He had done a lot of tapasya to get darshan of Lord Vishnu, but he didn't have service attitude. So they would have done some tapasya, something that they got say, but since they didn't had service attitude, they missed it. So the key is we should have service attitude to serve the Lord. Then we will take benefit of our bhakti. Bhakti means service attitude. So they would have done tapasya, but without bhakti, without service attitude. So they got darshan of the Lord, but not mercy of the Lord. But when we have service or attitude, then we get the mercy of the Lord. So for that, you have to associate with other devotees to develop that service attitude towards the Lord. As a discipline. No, no, okay, service. Ah, it means you do it for a person. Then he is pleased. Then by the pleasure of Vaishnavas, remembering Krishna becomes easier. No, 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 no. See, they do with a lot of doership. First, doership should be purified. Like, for example, some service you don't like, still you do it. But it's not saying that you don't sleep in the night. Whatever a time limit in that you do. And result will not come, then authorities will naturally not give you that seva. They will give you seva which you can do. Problem happens, people think I have to burnt out means 10 बजे नहीं सोऊंगा 12 बजे सोऊंगा सेवा करते करते that once out happen during the time of sadhana bhakti. See, sleeping is also sadhana bhakti. The sadhaka should think my eating is also sadhana bhakti, sleep is also sadhana bhakti, so I should do all angas of sadhana bhakti, and with whatever time is let me do seva. When you become liberated soul, that time no sleep, no food, you can do all time serving. But when you're doing sadhana bhakti, sleep is an anga of sadhana bhakti. 6 hours sleep is sadhana bhakti, 7 hours sleep is not anga of sadhana bhakti. That is extra. So whatever food timings are there, that is anga of sadhana bhakti. So it's a wholesome process. Because anything which fall in the order of spiritual master is sadhana bhakti. So spiritual master says sleep 6 hours, then it becomes an anga of sadhana bhakti. If spiritual master says take prasad 2 times, becomes an anga of sadhana bhakti. So when you do the angas of sadhana bhakti, do it full. But what happens? You may want to miss one anga and do fully, then you will get burnt out. No. So till that time, when you become liberated, you can miss on and you not get burnt out. But till that time you become liberated, you have to follow all the angas now of sadhana bhakti. Yeah, you can always express. Yeah, but still they say still you do. So then you should do. Yeah. Okay. So end here. Grantha Shunadam ki, Shri Prabhupada ki.